news tonight, the Royal Air Force Chief briefs the media on the outcome of 3 days of strikes on Daesh targets as Jordan vows to go after the group in response to the brutal killing of pilot Muad al-Kasasbe. His Majesty the King meets at Al Husseiniya Palace with Prince Charles of Wales, who leads a delegation on a visit to Jordan as part of a regional tour. And the Quartet of Middle East peace mediators urge a prompt resumption of Palestinian-Israeli talks and voice concern about the slow pace of reconstruction in Gaza. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Jordan's Air Force Chief General Mansour Jbour held a briefing at the King Abdullah II Special Operation Training Center on the outcome of 3 days of airstrikes by Jordanian fighter jets on Daesh targets, including key bases and armed depot. General Mansour Jbour listed the main aims of the military operation, dubbed Operation Martyr Muad, and the extent of discretion to Daesh following the airstrikes. Here are the details.
Jordan vowed to wipe Daesh out completely to avenge the killing of Air Force Lieutenant Muad al-Kasasbe, and it is delivering on its vow. For the past 3 days, Jordanian fighter jets have targeted Daesh weapons depots and training sites in an air mission dubbed Muad the Martyr. In a briefing at King Abdullah II Special Operations Training Center, Head of the Royal Air Force Major General Mansour Jbour identified the 5 centers of gravities for the air campaign.
The first one is the leadership of Daesh. The second one is Daesh Training Center and Logistics. The third is where Daesh get the funded and they earn the money supporting them. And our final center of gravity is Daesh garrisons, where they sleep and eat.
He said the sorties, undertaken in coordination with coalition troops, were precise and hit targets away from any civilian compounds.
In the first day, we targeted Daesh training centers and logistics centers. We hit more than 19 targets. In fact, we did not hit, we destroyed. In the second day after we successfully completed the first set of targets in the first day, we destroyed their depots, weapons, ammunition, fuel, and their equipment. And that's exactly aligned with the objectives of the air campaign. In the third day, and it's not the final, we targeted Daesh garrisons where they sleep and eat. And we successfully destroyed more than 19 targets.
Jbour said that 7,000 terrorists affiliated to Daesh have been killed since the coalition launched the military campaign against the group. He stressed that Jordan will persist till the annihilation of the terrorist gang.
The war against Daesh is going to continue. We are determined to achieve the objectives of this war. And not only to degrade Daesh capabilities, we are going to destroy Daesh. And that is the aim. The crosshair of our weapons is at that target, and definitely we are going to achieve it.
Since the start of the air campaign against the terrorists, there have been 5,500 sorties, in addition to more than 2,000 intelligence sorties. Jordan's Air Force has taken part in 946 hours, which means nearly 20% of what has been achieved until this moment. Following the martyrdom of Muad al-Kasasbe, His Majesty the King said the pilot's blood will not go in vain. Jordan vowed to wipe Daesh out completely, and it is delivering on its vow. Alia Tuqan for the news at 10.
Meanwhile, a squadron of F-16 fighter jets from the United Arab Emirates arrived in Jordan after the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi said his country will be supporting Jordan and the coalition's military effort in the fight against Daesh. Jordanian officials said the UAE will conduct joint airstrikes with Jordanian colleagues against the terrorist group. The King of Bahrain, Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, is expected here in Amman tomorrow. He will meet with His Majesty King Abdullah to discuss bilateral ties and the situation in the region. His Majesty the King received at Al Husseiniya Palace Prince Charles of Wales, who arrived in Amman yesterday on a working trip as part of a tour of the region. The meeting dealt with the friendly Jordanian-British relations as well as the strategic cooperation between the two countries. King Abdullah and Prince Charles discussed scopes of cooperation between Jordan and the Prince Charles Foundation to further serve common interests. An expanded meeting later convened and was attended by Prince Charles' accompanying delegation and senior Jordanian officials to review the situation in the region, especially in light of challenges emerging from radical organizations and terror groups that are threatening world peace and security. Separately, Prince Charles made a tour of Zaatari camp, which hosts over 83,000 registered Syrian refugees, according to the UNHCR. His tour including stops at the UNRWA Center, where volunteers assist in providing services to refugees, a youth center, which provides psychological services to children and youth, and a school that offers leadership skills and community service training, established by Mercy Group in cooperation with the British Embassy. Prince Charles also met with young Syrians who described to him the challenges they face as refugees. UNHCR representative to Jordan, Andrew Harper, told Prince Charles the agency has been offering a safe place for the refugees but needed more money to sustain its services. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour met with visiting British Secretary for State for International Development Justine Greening, who announced the UK government's decision to donate £100 million in humanitarian aid to Syrian refugees, part of which will go to assist Jordan as a host country. Mansour, for his part, briefed Greening on pressures on the kingdom's resources as a result of hosting Syrians, especially on health and education services. Minister of Interior Hussein al-Majali, present at the meeting, said the community police, who are trained in the UK, have contributed to a great extent in keeping law and order at refugee camps, as well as to increasing the confidence between security forces and refugees. Greening spoke to Jordan television following the meeting.
Well, first of all, we expressed our sorrow at the death of Amaz al-Kazazbe. Everybody in the UK was absolutely shocked by his execution. We also had a chance to talk about the amazing generosity of the Jordanian people in accepting so many refugees into your country and also giving them the hospitality. The United Kingdom has stood shoulder to shoulder with Jordan through this very difficult time, and today we also announced a further £100 million of support for the Syria crisis, part of which will be dedicated to continue working with the government here in Jordan to help provide that safe haven for refugees. We also want to continue doing the huge amounts of work we are with host communities to help the many communities across this country who've been so welcoming to refugees who've arrived, but also have found it very, very hard often to deal with such an influx of new people.
The Quartet of Middle East peace mediators urged a prompt resumption of talks between the Israelis and the Palestinians after a meeting in Munich and voiced concern about the slow pace of reconstruction in Gaza damaged in last year's war. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini, Russia's Sergei Lavrov, and Deputy UN Head Jan Eliasson reiterated that talks must respect Palestinian aspirations for statehood and Israel's security concerns. To that end, Mogherini said negotiations must be based on a two-state solution, highlighting the Arab Peace Initiative as an important vision for comprehensive settlement and a vital role of Arab partners.
We will remain actively engaged in preparing for a resumption of the peace process in the coming period, including regular and direct outreach to Arab states. Pending the resumption of negotiations, the Quartet called on both parties to refrain from actions that undermine trust or prejudice final status issues. We underscored the importance of ensuring that the acute fiscal challenges faced by the Palestinians are addressed and of supporting Palestinian institution building efforts.
The quartet also urged donors to disburse the more than $5 billion in aid for the Palestinians pledged last October in Cairo to repair damage from the war in the tiny coastal territory.
The quartet is deeply concerned over the difficult situation in Gaza, where the pace of its reconstruction needs to be accelerated to address the basic needs of the Palestinian population and to ensure stability. We stressed that donor funding is critical. We expressed support for the recent joint letter by Egypt and Norway, as well as the joint statement by the Secretary Generals of the United Nations and the League of Arab States, urging donors to disburse as soon as possible their financial commitments made at the October last year Cairo conference.
A shipment of U.S. weapons pledged to the Lebanese army arrived to Beirut's port in a move that marks a renewed American commitment to helping Lebanon battle terrorists along its borders. The shipment included over 70 M198 howitzers, as well as 26 million rounds of ammunition, including small, medium, and heavy artillery rounds. Lebanese and American officials attended the handover ceremony.
$25 million worth of weapons and ammunition arrives in Lebanon from the U.S. The shipment to the Lebanese army includes 70 M198 howitzers and 26 million rounds of ammunition, intended to help it fight jihadist groups which have repeatedly battled with security forces near the Syrian border. U.S. Ambassador to Lebanon David Hale was on hand to oversee the delivery at Beirut port.
This is top-of-the-line equipment. This is the best that there is on the marketplace. It's what our soldiers use, and I know that in a matter of days is going to be what your brave soldiers are using in the battle to defeat terrorism and extremism that's pouring across the border from Syria.
The U.S. has provided the Lebanese army with more than $1 billion in military aid since 2006, and it was the fifth largest recipient of U.S. foreign military funding in 2014.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said he could accept a compromise in nuclear talks and defended President Hassan Rouhani's decision to negotiate with the West, saying any workable deal would mean both sides easing their demands. Khamenei said he is all for a good settlement, but a deal must be concluded in one stage and consist of clear and detailed specification and not subject to interpretations. Negotiations between Iran and the six powers, the United States, Britain, France, Germany, Russia and China, have a deadline for June 30 for a final agreement that would curb Iran's dispute nuclear activity in return for a phased lifting of sanctions imposed on Tehran. Khamenei spoke as Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif held talks with the counterparties, describing the negotiations as very serious.
We support progress in these nuclear negotiations, and if a good deal is reached, we will support it. I will support it, and I'm sure that the Iranian nation will have no disagreement with a deal in which its dignity is preserved, its respect is preserved, its interests are maintained. But these futures must be observed without a doubt.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called for a peaceful political solution to the crisis in Yemen. At a news conference in Riyadh during a visit to Saudi Arabia, where he held talks with Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz and several other Saudi officials on the situation in Yemen, the UN chief stressed the necessity for a dialogue and called for a peaceful transition process. Yesterday, the Gulf Cooperation Council accused the Houthi rebels of staging a coup and called the takeover a threat to the security and stability of the region and the interests of its people.
Power and making this government situation is very, very seriously deteriorating, with the Houthis taking power and making this government vacuum in power. There must be a restoration of legitimacy of President Hadi's.
United Nations climate change negotiations opened in Geneva ahead of a global deal to curb global warming in Paris in December. The goal at this 6-day meeting in Geneva is to trim down a 37-page blueprint negotiated in Lima last year, in which many view as unworkable into negotiating document. Last week, the World Meteorological Organization said that 2014 was the hottest year on record, adding that a part of the warming trend is that it's set to continue. Despite the urgency, the UN process remained divided roughly between the interests of rich and developing nations, as reflected in an unwieldy draft that emerged from the annual ministerial level talk in Peru last December. Mexican filmmaker Alejandro Iñárritu won the Top Director Guild Award for Birdman, bringing with his win a major Oscar buzz in Los Angeles, California. The SAG Awards are one of the major award events in Hollywood since 1995 and considered an indicator of success at the Academy Awards. The Director Guild of America's Award for Feature Film Director has correctly predicted the Best Director Academy Award for 10 of the past 11 years. Birdman co-leads in Oscar nominations with 9 nods, including the film industry top horror, Best Picture, along with the Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Supporting Actress. The 87th Annual Academy Award will be handed out in a live telecast ceremony from a Dolby Theater in Hollywood on February 22nd.
This is considered a great film. It doesn't have nothing to do with me. It's a miracle. And a good film is something that is beyond what you can do. And I truly say.
Another sensational performance from Maria Sharapova helped Russia to the Fed Cup semi-finals, where they will play Germany. After her success on Saturday against Ursula Radwanska, Sharapova made short work of big sister Agnieszka to give Russia an unassailable 3-love lead. The world number 2 saw Radwanska senior 6-1, 7-5 in Krakow. With Russia leading 4-love, the team decided not to play the final single matches. Over to Germany, Kerber beat Samantha Stosur 6-2, 6-4. Then Petkovic defeat Jarmila Gazodova 6-3, 3-6, 8-6, her second 3-setter. Germany lost the 2014 final to Czech Republic and this year are second seeds. The Germans will face Russia away in the semis on April 18 and 19. And finally, chilly and cloudy tonight with a chance for light showers, especially in the northern regions. Wind will be westerly to northwesterly, moderate and dusty. Tomorrow, relatively cold conditions prevail in the north and central parts of the country, bringing scattered rain in the early morning hours. Brisk winds are expected, stirring dust in the south and east. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a cool night and relatively warm day tomorrow with moderate winds and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. The Royal Air Force Chief briefs the media on the outcome of 3 days of strikes on Daesh targets as Jordan vows to go after the group in response to the brutal killing of pilot Muad al-Kasasbe. His Majesty the King meets at Al Husseiniya Palace with Prince Charles of Wales, who leads a delegation on a visit to Jordan as part of a regional tour. And the Quartet of Middle East peace mediators urge a prompt resumption of Palestinian-Israeli talks and voice concern about the slow pace of reconstruction in Gaza. And with this we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlouni. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.